Hey, what's up, guys? So, I wanted to come on here and talk quickly about motivation and how to kind of create more motivation for yourself in order to actually get things done, right? Because honestly, the key to success is just the ability to sit down and actually do a thing and focus on a thing for hours at a time without getting distracted, right? If you're gonna go do a workout, it's gonna take whatever 30, 60 minutes of concentrated focus with no distractions. You're gonna have to just do it. If you're going to school, you have to sit down and study. You have to sit down and go to class and be able to focus in on what's going on. If you need to go to work, obviously, the work that requires little distraction or that can allow distraction are usually going to be things that are possibly lower in pay. So you could do warehouse work where you have your headphones in and you can do whatever, but you don't really need to concentrate on the work. But we all know that the work that really requires a high level of concentration are usually going to be jobs or career paths that pay more. And that's kind of what we want to look for, right? We want to look for how can we make more money in less time. That's the most important thing when it comes to financial freedom. Otherwise, you're either going to overwork yourself or you're not going to have any money. And we need money to survive. So we got to figure out how to make that work. So cheers to you guys, and let's get into it. So firstly, we have to acknowledge the fact that you need to be able to focus on something for an extended period of time, right? And how do you do that, right? How do you actually sit down and do a thing, right? Well, there was a great book that I read by Stephen Pressfield called Do the Work. And the whole premise of it is to just fucking do it. You're going to create all these rationalities in your head about why you shouldn't do a thing or whatever the case may be. But as soon as you just sit down and start, if you have a homework project that you need to work on for school or something to that effect, in your mind, it's going to be this thing until you actually just sit down and start going. And the idea of that is that there's almost a magic that comes from that, right? Once you sit down and start the work, you all of a sudden don't really need to think about the work that much. You just start you just start doing it. You just start staying in that present moment. And as you go through it more and more, then you're just being focused and concentrated on the work, right? So acknowledge that there is this little thing that creates those rationalities for doing a thing and why you shouldn't do a thing, right? It's kind of messed up, but it's a survival tactic, and that's the reason that we are alive today. But of course, we don't need to worry so much about survival as much as we used to, so it's up to us to kind of create a sense of purpose for ourselves, So concentration and focus are going to be important things. Now, as far as where to put your focus and where to put your concentration, there's a big thing that's really helpful, okay? And this is something that's by Jordan Peterson. What you want is to be very clear on the type of lifestyle that you are most afraid of, right? Most afraid of, not what you don't want, but afraid of, right? So as an example, the lifestyle that I'm most afraid of is waking up, watching prawn, and just sitting in my own wallow with and just beating my meat every single day and just doing nothing. That is to me the most scariest type of lifestyle to have. Because of that, it makes me feel well, anything that I do that puts me in the other direction, I'm getting away from that, and that makes me happy. But what we also need is to have a type of lifestyle that you do want, right? And the key term on that is to look at the lifestyle, not just the end result, right? So I'll get into it. So when I started to hear about this, I wanted to create a lifestyle for myself where I thought about what were the things that I wanted to be doing in the future. On a daily basis, what are some stuff that I'm doing? What's my routine look like? What am I doing in the morning? What am I doing for work? What am I doing for my work? What's actually going on throughout the day versus just oh, I want to be rich, successful, and fit, and have the woman of my dreams, right? Yeah, okay, so does everybody else. There's no clarity behind that, right? You actually want to think about, well, what behaviors and habits am I doing, my ideal self doing? What can I see myself doing for work that would give myself an income that I find fair and that fits my lifestyle, but that isn't going to make me want to like drill my head through the wall, right? You think about like, okay, well, when do I want to like, I want to be the type of person, right? You could start it off like this. I want to be the type of person who works out every morning. I want to be the type of person who shows up to work focused. I want to be the type of person who shows up to their relationships with empathy and compassion and care. All right, like these are the things that I want to be able to do, and there's things that I work on now in order to get there. Right, I want to be the type of person who's working out every day. Okay, so I work out because that's who I am. I almost like identify with it, right? Versus like, it's kind of like those people that, let's say they want to quit smoking cigarettes and they try quitting and then they start smoking cigarettes again. And now they're like, oh, I guess that's just the type of person that I am. I'm just the type of person that smokes cigarettes. Well, if you say that, then yeah, you're never going to be able to quit. But all we are we're humans, and we have habits and behaviors that can be shaped and shifted, right? So I want you guys to just take a moment to kind of think about that. There's two types of lifestyles. What is the lifestyle that you are most afraid of? And what is the type of lifestyle that you feel you would be happy with? You would put your head down at the end of the day and feel a sense of fulfillment. Not that it's not going to be easy, but there's a sense of fulfillment. There's a sense of purpose that comes from that. So think about that for a moment. Okay, great. So now we start to think about, well, how do we actually create habits for ourselves, right? Well, firstly, a really good book to read is Atomic Habits by James Clear? Something like that, but it's Atomic Habits. Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit is also a great book. Atomic Habits kind of adds to it, I think. The idea is to identify what our current habits are. So what you need to do over the next week is you're going to write down what you're doing throughout the day. You're going to track your day, okay? And the really easy way to do this is to block out increments of like 30 minutes. So you would, for instance, go, okay, well, from 9 a.m. to 9:30, what am I doing? From 9:30 to 10, what am I doing? From 10 to 10:30, what am I doing? From 10:30 to 11, what am I doing? And you're literally going to write that down for every 30-minute block. And what this does is it helps you identify what you're actually doing with your time. And this is a great way to set yourself up for change. Now, what you want to do is when you go into this, you need to be non-judgmental on yourself. There's no reason that you need to like bombard yourself or try to be mean to yourself because you're like, hey, I didn't get out of bed till 11:30 and now I see how much time I'm just wasting. Well, that does come with a little bit of like a hit in the stomach for sure, a hit in the gut. But know that not a lot of people do this, and you just did it just now, and that's awesome. That is the first step, and you're on your way to bigger and better things. Now, once you start tracking your habits and tracking your behavior, you would then start to create small changes. And the way to do this is firstly to look at behaviors and habits as not something that you can like get rid of. Like you can't get rid of a behavior. You can't get rid of the habit of, let's say, engaging in PMO, right? But what you can do is you can change that habit. So as an example, you can change what you do every time you get urges. So when you get urges and you usually watch PMO, if you were to get urges and then meditate, for an example, then that's going to rewire the behavior into something that's more positive, and that's something that's going to bring you more fulfillment and success in your life, in however terms that you identify those as. And then, well, what you start to do, once you acknowledge the fact that you can only change it, is you then start to focus on one habit at a time, and you make a couple of changes throughout your week, right? So you have like your list of behaviors, you tracked your behavior for a week. Now you're going to look at one or two behaviors that you want to maybe shift and change, right? So if you are, let's say, playing video games for 4 hours, you would then try to change some of that time. Maybe you play video games for only 3 hours, and that 1 hour you're going to work out, right? Like, you're going to change what you do at that time and not just say, I'm not going to play video games. You're going to say, I'm going to work out, right? It's like reframing, right? It's reframing the way that you want to change into, I'm going to do this thing, not I'm not going to do this thing, right? You understand what I'm saying? Instead of it being like a negative mind frame, you have a more positive mind frame by saying, okay, I'm going to do this thing, not just I'm not going to do this thing, right? That's the big problem that people get with the nofap and the no PMO is they'll say to themselves, I'm not going to fap, I'm not going to watch prawn, but they don't actually change the behavior into something that is actually going to lead them towards a lifestyle that they want. So guys, now that you have a little bit more clarity on the type of lifestyle that you're most afraid of and the type of lifestyle that you want, and as you go through this and you start to identify what your behaviors are, you start to make a couple of small changes. And I promise you that if you just take this next couple of weeks to do that exactly, by the end of the 2 weeks, you're going to have put yourself in a state of momentum where you're not really going to have to think much about the progress, and you're just going to keep seeing progress occasionally, or consistently rather. So I hope you guys found this video enjoyable. Let me know down below what you're going to start to apply to your lifestyle based off of what you just learned today. All right, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.